In this video, I will talk about GDP. Some of you told me that you don't know what GDP is, or you haven't studied economics before. You haven't taken a course in economics, maybe, or economics related courses. So, to get you started with economics, then I think it's best to start with simple concepts like GDP, because we will use it a lot in this term and in other courses as well. Now, to explain it to you, I would want to start with a simple economy. I think after watching this video, you should be able to explain what GDP is to a beggar in the street, and they will understand it as well. So this will be as simple as it is. Say that this is a huge island right in the middle of what? Ocean? Big ocean. Oops. Let's hide it somewhere here. Big ocean. Well, it looks like a face with some hair. Okay, anyway, right, so this is a huge island, and we have two families, family A, family B, just for some reason happen to live there, and they have no contact. They have no contact to the outside countries or outside the world. They only know that the world exists, and this island is the only place where they live, and then no one else lives elsewhere. Assume family A for a living do fishing, so they catch fish and they eat or consume all the fish that they can catch. And then family B does some agricultural work and produces agricultural produce, tomatoes and everything else, and they consume only this agricultural product. They don't consume fish. Say that in the next year you sell all your fish that you caught for some, let's say $100, all your fish you hold caught to family B, and family B sells you all the grains, tomatoes and everything to you that they grew or harvested in this year. So that, in other words, you aren't consuming your fish, you're selling everything, and family B isn't consuming their harvest, they're just selling everything to you. In that case, assuming that these are valued in the market prices, so let's say you value your fish $2 per kilogram, they valued their tomato and everything $10 per kilogram, for example, and then you exchange certain amounts, and in that case GDP will then be total output equal to 100 pounds or dollars, sorry, for the fish that you received plus $200 of $200 that you paid for the agricultural products, and that's total $300. So that's the total GDP of the country. So basically it's the amount of or total products and services or values of total products and services produced and consumed within a country, within a border. And assuming this is the one country and two family country, then this is a very simple example, but it just demonstrates what GDP is. In real world, GDP is composed of the values of many million different items. And just take an example, let's take an example of real world today. So in 1990 here, the US had a GDP of almost $6 trillion. So that includes all the rockets, all the machines, all the agricultural products, all the banking services, all the Ford cars, Chrysler cars, and everything Apple computers produced within America. Japan had almost or maybe more than $3 trillion worth of GDP output in that year. So basically GDP is a measure of value, so value of all the total products within a given year, for example, assuming year is 12 months in your economy here, in our toy economy as well. And Germany was the third economy in terms of size of their GDP value, volume of their GDP. So in this course we talk about GDP as a measure of size of the economy. So whenever I talk about big economies, I'm talking about, in fact, economies such as US, Japan, Germany, because their GDP is much higher than rest of the world GDP. For example, Canada was what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th largest economy in the world at the time. I don't see Canada now in 2011. In fact, China was the 10th Look, it's the second largest economy now. Much faster growth. That's why China, we always hear from the newspapers, or we read from newspapers and hear from the news anchors talking about China growing fast. This is about making more products, producing more. 1990, what about 1 trillion? Not even 1 trillion. Look, it's just over what, 0.2 trillion? Not even 1 trillion. To what, 6-7 trillions in 2011. Huge growth. No other countries experience that sort of growth. UK almost, well, there is a growth. UK from about just under 2 trillion to around 4 trillion. Doubled, economy size doubled. But China's economy, I don't know how to call it. Well, about 20 times more, depending on how much it is, basically, this value. Huge economy now. You see, that's fast growth. Right, so if I go back to our example, you will see that next year you may catch more fish and they may harvest more, and then you exchange different values now. Maybe you raise the price, for example. They may raise the price, or maybe there is some accident, natural disaster, and then family will not produce anything. Maybe flooding, all the harvest is gone. Then you'll have to catch more fish to feed yourself and then feed the other family. That affects the GDP as well. And in textbooks, usually you will see that GDP is measured using expenditure approach, whereby all those produce that you have in a given year, all the product you have in a given year, is consumed by householder C, plus is also used by companies I, so it's a company investment, plus also used by government, so government spending. So consumption by households, consumption by companies, and consumption of government. So this is all your GDP. In this example, there are only households exist, so all the GDP values are from C, basically measuring the C, consumption of households. However, assume that the family A builds a fish processing factory here, big factory, for $100. Then that's an investment. So your GDP now increases. So this was C. You now add 100, assuming next year you produce the same amount of grain and agriculture product and fish. You add now $100 because you invested in this by making up or producing some machine that processes fish. Yeah, so that's $100. Now it's total. Now GDP this year is 400. You see, the GDP is increasing. The economy is growing now. It become large, in other words. And now you decided to form a government. So you came together, two families came together and elected some leader here who is a president, and he makes a decision on building roads, telephone networks, and things like this, and bringing broadband. So he decided to spend some cash on building the road that links two families. Then that's a government spending. Say that's 50. So some of the produce that you produce between yourselves is spent on building that road. So next year the GDP is now 450, assuming that you produce the same amount of fish, invested another £100, maybe for the next extension of the, and then extra 50 from government. Now this is a closed economy. But what if you trade with another remote island here, that you realize that there is someone there living there that only produces orange? Well, you want to eat orange, right? You want to consume some orange, so you pay them to get the oranges. So they sell you orange, but then they've been eating orange for all the time. They've been consuming orange, so they want to get some, well, agriculture produce and fish. So you then sell them these two products. So in other words, you are exporting, sorry, this is importing orange from them and exporting to them whatever you produce. In that case, we will then add the cash flows from exports E and take away cash flows that we are paying them for, using to pay for oranges I, imports. So exports minus imports will then make up our GDP when we are trading with the rest of the world. So if the island nation doesn't trade, then these two expressions will not be there. But as soon as they trade with the other orange nation, orange island, for example, we have to add the value of exports, the cash we received for exports, and then take away the cash, because it's a cash outflow expenditure, For the oranges, we're buying oranges, the cash is leaving the island, so this has to be taken out from the consumption because we're consuming that orange. Yeah. Then the definition of GDP will, in terms of expenditure approach, will be this: consumption by households, investment by firms, government spending for infrastructure and everything else, exports from or to origination, our production or produce and services, and inputs from them, right? So that's GDP for you, and I hope this is clear. When you generalize to the current nations and countries, this is much more complicated, but this tells you what GDP is basically. And if it's not clear, let me know during the class.